7:35 p.m., and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to acknowledge that Mr. DeMonica is not here tonight. He is home resting, and we all wish him a good recovery. Hi, Paul. Okay, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
And a second. Motion by Mrs. Waters, second by Mr. Fiorello. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it, 6-0. Okay, now I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes, the regular meeting, February 27th, 2020, special meeting, March 5th, 2020, approval of the minutes from the executive session, February 27th, 2020, the executive session, March 5th, 2020, the enrollment report of March 1st, 2020, the school police report of February 1st, 2020, the school bus inspection reports of March 1st, 2020, and the residency truancy report for March 1st, 2020.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Mrs. Waters, second.
Second.
By Mr. Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it, 6-0. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a report out of the executive session meeting. We did not take any votes at that meeting, so I just need a motion to seal the minutes of the executive
Motion to seal
session.
the minutes.
Motion by Mrs. Waters, second.
Second.
By Mr. Collins, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? The ayes have it, 6-0. Okay, next up on the agenda, Mr. Mitchell, is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. The first item that I would like to discuss this evening is the school construction. And we had a meeting today to discuss next steps. And as you all know, we submitted our Stage 2 submission in February. And what happens now, and what has been happening, is the Department of Ed reviews that submission, and we're hoping that there won't be a lot of recommendations and more information needed by the Department of Ed, but we're hoping to get some feedback within the next couple of weeks, and the goal is to be in a position where we can start construction sooner rather than later. And the reason that we want to start sooner rather than later is because we want to be in a position to take advantage of all of the bonus points that are available, and the work has to be done or at least begin within a certain period of time. So we're hoping, and I'm fairly confident based on the last meeting that we had at RIDE, that there will not be a tremendous amount of work that we need to do in response to any questions that they may have had about that submission. So I think we're hoping that within the next week or so, 2 at most, that we'll get that feedback from RIDE. But our ultimate goal is to start working on this swing space, this transition building, which will be used as swing space this summer. And in the spirit of transparency, one of the things that we are hoping will happen is that work will begin here. It'll be ready for students moving in during what we believe will be Christmas break. So one of the things we need to consider is, will we need to take the 2 full weeks to move Cumberland Hill, is the school that will be moved into the swing space. Will we need 2 full weeks to move them in? And hopefully that decision will be made soon. Once we know one way or another as to whether or not we are going to begin implementing this process sooner rather than later, we can then make a decision about our school calendar too, right? So I know that people are anxious to know what our school calendar is going to be so that they can start making plans for vacations and so forth. Because we're hoping that someday people will be able to go on vacation again. So, I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. Is there anything, Alex, can you go to the microphone, please?
Yeah, there are some real advantages for trying to start sooner rather than later. The goal is we would hope we could shorten the project from 5 years to 3.5, which would save quite a bit of money on escalation costs. If we could eliminate that 4th and 5th year, we'd save a lot of money. Besides, right now there's only like 6 districts that are before RIDE to have work that have had getting work stage 2s approved. Come years 4 and 5 out, every district will be involved. As we had that kind of jump because we jumped in and got the bond approved so early. Then the other advantage is that Bob started to talk a little bit about it. The bonuses, the way they're structured right now, the educational enhancements and security, they're only good through 2022. After that, you won't get them unless you have contracts in place. If you have contracts in place in 22 for years 23 and 24, you're going to pay through the nose because no one's going to give you prices 2 years out in advance without protecting themselves. So we want to make sure we get all the bonuses, and there are other bonuses expire in 23, so it really makes some sense. Our goal is to get all $83 million, the money that's going to go to construction of the $83 million, 20% bonuses on them. And then the other advantage right now, and that's kind of fell in our lap, is that the bond market couldn't be better. Now is absolutely the time to do construction costs and stuff like that. You could lock in to, if you, in the next 6 months, if you lock in a bond, remember those rates will be in place to 20 years, the length of the bond. The district, the school, the town could save literally millions of dollars in interest costs if we move quickly.
Thank you, Alex.
I just have a concern about moving Cumberland Hill during Christmas break and teachers having enough time to actually set up their classrooms in time for students to arrive. Has there been discussions with the teachers at Cumberland Hill?
There have not been any discussions to date because, we want to make sure that it's a go before we start having that conversation. And, I think that's a perfectly reasonable concern. We've had a conversation with some teachers who have some knowledge of the work that we have been doing. And, I have been trying to keep the president of the CTA informed as well. And, people will have plenty of time to begin that process. And, I think one of the things that we have to, we're going to be moving literally hundreds of kids and adults. There's a possibility that it's going to be a little messy. So, but I think when we keep our eye on the final product and we see, what it could be, I think it'll be well worth any, disruption to the usual routine that we will face in any way. So I think we need to reassure people. Oh, and the point I want to make is, this is one of the things we've learned based on our experiences over the last several years. We've done a lot of work in a short period of time over the summer, some pretty extensive work with a real tight timeline. And I've learned a lot. And one of the things I'm most impressed with is how good these construction companies and, everyone involved in that process, movers, the actual, all of the trades that do the work, the architects involved. It is amazing to me how efficient they are when they know that here is the timeline, they're able to get it done. So perfectly legitimate concerns, and I think part of our responsibility, and one of the things that we talk about a lot, and we've talked about this with the school committee, is the importance of really strong communication so that people are very aware of what is happening at all times. Mr. Chandler and I, with, and Colliers has been included in this, one of the things we want to do is, and there may already be one, a link on the district website, so that, people can just go there and we'll be able to make sure that everyone is updated on a regular basis as to where we are in the timeline. Any other questions related to that? Okay, moving on then. Madam Chair, we had kindergarten registration scheduled for March 18th and 19th, and as you know, in our administrative meeting today and talking about the coronavirus, this issue came up. We are in agreement that we need to push that out, at the very least, till maybe the beginning of April, maybe the end of April, but we will be putting our heads together and deciding on a change of date given the circumstances with this virus. So we'll make sure that we let folks know what that change will be. And let's see. Oh, we just want to make sure that this is one of those things we need to keep on the front burner. We want to remind everyone, and hopefully we're going to be able to follow through with this, but the SAT testing date is requiring us to have everyone stay for a full day on Wednesday, March 25th. There will be no release day, and we have already worked all of that out. So, Madam Chair, would you like to just have a quick conversation about the coronavirus? And certainly, please feel free to jump in since you attended the meeting this morning. Just so that everyone knows, we have been having ongoing meetings in an effort to make sure that everyone is on the same page with the coronavirus and COVID-19. And I think everyone understands that information is coming at us and changing almost hourly, literally. And so in fact, we had 2 full administrative meetings this week so far, and if we have to call another one tomorrow, everyone has been really good about attending these emergency meetings, if you will. So we had one this morning at 10:30, and I think there were a couple of things, and Madam Chair, I'm sure you'll agree, that we would like to share with the public, and I will send out something to parents, students, and staff tomorrow so that you all have the most up-to-date information that we have available to us. Every week there is a conference call with Dr. Nicole Alexander Scott. She is the director of the Rhode Island Department of Health. So she provides a current update. So for example, one of the things that she lets us know right off the bat, and there are literally hundreds of people on this conference call, and one of the things that she shares with us right off the bat is the number of confirmed cases of the coronavirus, and there are currently 5 individuals in the state of Rhode Island that have tested positive for the COVID-19. And she provides other information, and I'm sure many of you had an opportunity to see Governor Raimondo in her press conference yesterday afternoon at 4 o'clock. So Dr. Alexander Scott has her conference call at 2 on Wednesdays, and the governor had her press conference slightly after 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. And here are some of the things that we talked about in our meeting today, and I think it's really important for parents and members of the community to know that the governor talked about taking, and I quote, stringent preventative measures. The whole goal, the thing that both Dr. Scott and Governor Raimondo talked about was containing the virus. So I think one of the reasons why we're hearing that so many things are being shut down, everything from professional sports to college sports to dances to conferences, all of these things are being postponed or actually canceled out of concern and with the goal of trying to contain the spread of the virus. So, you know, I would be remiss, even though we've heard this countless times, that they always mention the importance of focusing on prevention. You know, one of the most important things that we can do is, you know, frequently wash our hands. We need to frequently use hand sanitizer. We need to make sure that we're using, you know, really good coughing and sneezing etiquette, you know, making sure that we're using a tissue. If we don't have a tissue, make sure that we're sneezing or coughing into our elbows. People who haven't had a flu shot, they strongly recommend that all individuals do so. And the big thing is, if anyone's sick in any way, that they should stay home from school or from work. We have decided, based on our conversations and the guidance that we have received from the Rhode Island Department of Health, that we should cancel all non-essential school activities. Like, for example, I'm just going to give this as an example. There was I don't know if it's called a father-daughter dance anymore. I know we have to be careful about, you know, what is it? The daughter dance. You know, 500 people were scheduled to take advantage of that wonderful activity tomorrow, and, you know, that has been canceled. And there are other things that have been canceled as well. And what's interesting is, and we've talked about this, is that we're finding that parents are almost relieved. Some have actually said they're relieved and have thanked us for making that decision. There are some meetings that are mandatory, like we know that there are scheduled IEP meetings, individual education plans for students receiving special ed services. This is just an example, that are required by law, that these meetings be held. And if they can't be done in person, then those meetings can be done via teleconference. So, you know, we are trying to think of everything. We know that there have been some concerns by parents regarding the attendance policy. We got to use good judgment and common sense under these circumstances, and we are waiving the illness-related attendance policy. So, and district-wide. So, pre-K to 12, we are waiving the attendance policy. One of the things that we discussed in our meeting this morning was the importance of, so it's not just, you know, controlling what happens in school, in our schools, but we also need to have some control with those individuals who come to our schools. So we have decided that all visitors visiting any of our schools, they need to answer some questions. And those questions are, before they can get in, have you been out of the country? Have you been in contact with anyone diagnosed with COVID-19? And have you been in contact with anyone who is being tested for COVID-19? So we are requiring that those questions are asked of anyone who is intending to come into any of our schools. As you can imagine, there is concern that schools may be closed for whatever reason. We are, Mr. Damana and his team have been working really hard over the last week or two in developing a virtual learning plan. So we are confident that, you know, with Chromebooks and both for students at both the middle and high schools, that will be in pretty good shape there. We are actually doing a survey of elementary school students to get a sense of, you know, how much access they have to technology and the internet at the elementary level. And, you know, like anything else, there are always going to be things that we didn't think of, but it's going to be difficult to, I think, for us to even consider doing all of the things at home that we are able to do here at school. But we are developing a virtual learning plan, and I'm confident that Mr. Damana and his team and all of the administrators and content leaders who are a part of this process will come up with a really good plan. Even though we're hearing lots of information about the importance of, individuals who are not feeling well, who are sick, that they stay home, the Department of Health and the Center for Disease Control, we have been told, are recommending that students come to school if they are not exhibiting any symptoms. Understandably, there are parents who, out of fear and concern, just as a precautionary measure, we have already had a couple of parents call and ask that their children be excused out of concern for the coronavirus exposure, but the Department of Health is recommending that students, for obvious reasons, go to school if they are not demonstrating any symptoms. But that's, certainly we respect a parent's decision to do what they think is best for their children. Realizing that parents have a lot of questions about this issue, the Department of Health is developing a frequently asked question document specifically for parents, and anything that comes from, anything like that has to be approved by the Department of Health. I don't know if the CDC is involved in that, but they have to get it approved to ensure that the information is accurate before it goes out. Dr. Rosemary Riley Shamat, who is a Cumberland resident and is, I guess, rides point person on this in working with the Department of Health, has been involved in that process. I've actually had a couple of conversations with Dr. Riley Shamat over the last couple of days, and she said that that should be coming out. I'm hoping tomorrow that I would hope that I could include it in my message to students, staff, and families. But if not tomorrow, as soon as I get it, I'll get it out to everybody. And last but not least, I think one of the things that we, in fact, I was discussing this with a couple members of the school committee walking down from our subcommittee meetings this evening, that, there are, I'm sure, students that are, having some pretty strong feelings about what is happening. There are adults that are, we've never experienced anything like this, ever. So one of the things that we will provide is a link for parents on how to talk to their children about this situation that we are in, and I'm sure that there is some fear and concern and anxiety on their part. I think the most important thing that I think we all realize this, based on what I said at the beginning of this particular item, that this is a really fluid situation. I mean, it is changing dramatically. Like, I'm getting text messages from colleagues who are sharing what's happening in other places, in other states, and in Rhode Island. So things are changing rapidly, and we understand our responsibility to keep everyone informed, and we will do that. I don't know, Mrs. Friedman, Madam Chair, if there's anything else that you wanted to add?
Now, having attended Mr. Mitchell's meeting today, I just want to reassure parents and families and students and staff that Mr. Mitchell is, assembling his team that not only includes administrators, it includes HR, IT, the food service, facilities, athletic director, and everybody working together to talk not only about what's happening today, but how do we plan for what might happen tomorrow. And I was really impressed with everybody at that meeting, and they're in close contact with the Department of Health. So every step, Mr. Mitchell and the administrators are taking every appropriate step at this time. We have there's only 5 confirmed cases in Rhode Island, but we know what's going on around us. And so I think everything, the administration is taking the right steps And with your communications that will come out tomorrow, I think will be very, very helpful for families, where we talk about the attendance policy, the visitor policy, events that may be canceled. I think it's all important work that's happening. So thank you for, your attention to that.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think it's okay to share publicly what that hotline number is at the Rhode Island Department of Health for everyone. And I'm really impressed at like how quickly they are responding to questions, and I know they're being bombarded. I'm being bombarded. But the Rhode Island Department of Health hotline is 222-8022. Again, 222-8022. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just want to add, this is historic, I think, in, obviously not impact, hopefully, but I mean, in the response. Nothing like this, I think, globally has ever happened, where the potential of something very big. And I think all of these things that are in place right now are designed to prevent this from being catastrophic, not only locally, but globally. So I think not only Cumberland, but every district in America is scrambling around trying to figure out what, and as Mr. Mitchell said, this is very fluid. It is changing hourly information, and we're getting emails in like, what's next? So we're trying to be as proactive as possible. When something's unprecedented, it's very hard to be proactive because we've never seen anything like this. So just the magnitude from canceling every major sports league to performances on Broadway, all the things that are happening right now, I think it's best to err on the side of caution. This too will soon come to pass, and hopefully we'll be back here talking about student achievement and moving the district forward. But in the meantime, it's hard to really focus on anything else when this is the threat is so acute that we have to deal with it right away. So I think Mr. Mitchell and the team and the faculty are doing an excellent job. But we really have no basis of comparison, so it's best to overreact than underreact, because this has the potential to be something very bad. But we hope for the best, so.
Thank you. Okay. I also just want to acknowledge that we have Counselor Shaw and Counselor Kinch in our audience tonight. Thank you for your attendance. And now, yes.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say that we should also thank our custodial staff, because they have been working feverishly, well, pardon the pun, to get all these schools cleaned and sanitized on a daily basis.
At least from a community standpoint and the NCMS standpoint, Mr. Mitchell had mentioned the canceling of the father-daughter dance. I was scheduled to go. This was going to be my 7th and final one. I was about to stand up here and be very sentimental a couple of weeks ago. But the volunteers who put it on, Mrs. Friedland, Mrs. Vaughn, I mean, this was a huge endeavor. I mean, I've watched this dance go from, the cafeteria over at the high school to scheduled this year at Lake Pearl, and that's because of volunteers. I mean, the time and effort they've put into this, it was going to be remarkable. And, but the feedback was all positive. It's like, you did what you had to do. And it's not an easy decision, but they did put the student health ahead. And, tomorrow's the pep rally at community school, and I can't even go to it. I was supposed to be the Dolphin, and this was going to be his story. I've been looking forward to this for months, and I can't go. So they're doing everything they can, but the volunteers who are putting these things together have really done a great job communicating and letting parents know what's going on. And there is the hope that some of these things aren't canceled, that they're going to be postponed, but we don't have a time frame right now. So hopefully these things are just postponed, and we can put something together at the end of the year. But until then, we're just kind of in a waiting period.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have reports of our standing committees, starting with payment of bills. Mr. Salvatore?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Fiscal Management met tonight in room 319. Mr. DeMonica was not present. It was myself and Mrs. Bernardo, and we did approve the payment of bills 2-0 in the amount of $1,932,273.31. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next up is your fiscal management subcommittee update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, like I said, fiscal management met today at 6 PM in room 319. We did get an update from our business manager, Alex Brignano, and a few items to point out, Madam Chair, is that a few weeks ago, page 6, right, Mrs. Brignano? There we go. We had talked about a dual enrollment, part of the program with CCRI, where the kids, they meet a criteria in Cumberland High School, and they can go to CCRI for their senior year. The original number, I believe, was in the 30s that we were advised about. A little research conducted, found out that the kids were just keyed wrong into our system. It's actually like still 7 or 8, maybe a few here and there, I believe. So we brought that number back down to 50,000, correct, Mr. Prignano? Okay. So that was good news. And then lastly, Mrs. Chair, is that our healthcare number, so we had budgeted 6.7 million. Year-to-date through February, we're at a little over 5 million. If we extrapolate that for our run rate, we need another 2.5 million. That'll bring us, we need an additional $843 million to cover our healthcare claims. Again, it's projected. What did I say?
You said million.
Oh, I'm sorry. 843,000. Yeah. 843 million would be a lot of health care. Sorry about that, Madam Chair. And lastly, per the town charter, we did get our budget tonight from the superintendent that we will be reviewing, and we have 3 scheduled meetings slated. The first one is going to be March 19th, Thursday at 5:30 p.m. The second one, Madam Chair, will be March 24th, a Tuesday, tentatively right now at 7:15. And lastly, if we need it, we schedule a meeting on March 26th at 5:30 p.m. And that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And to go back
Yeah, I was
to
gonna
the payment of bills, we actually need a motion to
Oh,
approve
I apologize.
the payment of bills.
I got
Motion.
caught in this coronavirus thinking. I started daydreaming off about it.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Collins, second by Mrs. Waters. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 6-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And just to repeat what Mr. Salvatore said, these budget meetings are open to the public, so everyone that wants to find out what is going on with the budget and the budget that will be submitted to the mayor and to the town council, please come to these meetings. They are here at the high school in T319. Again, March 19th at 5:30, March 24th at 7:15, and if needed, March 26th at 5:30. We welcome everyone to attend. Thank you. Next, an update from the Policy and Procedures Subcommittee update. Mr. Fiorello.
Policy and procedures did not meet this past week.
Okay, and then an update from the Achievement and Communications Subcommittee, which would be me, and we also did not meet this week. Our next meeting is March 24th, where we will be reviewing the second grade curriculum. Next, our last update is the District Health and Wellness Subcommittee update. Mrs. Bernardo?
Thank you. So we did meet last Thursday, and it was a special meeting. We had a presentation from Kyle Santos from TILO. He gave a presentation to try to help us understand how his organization may be able to help our community as a whole, and then what role the school department may be able to play within that. We did have a time constraint, so we really didn't quite make it to the end of that. So we're kind of still a little bit in flux with that to get all the full information. So that'll be, more coming in the future. Our next scheduled meeting is the first Thursday in April, which I believe is the 2nd. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is comments from the public. Do we have any comments from the public? Please state your name and address.
Good evening, Bob Shaw, 38 Plant Street. I just wanted to come up there and express my thanks to the superintendent for making the tough decisions, but in an unprecedented, to echo Mr. Collins's words, in an unprecedented era that we're going through right now. If you're taking the safety and the well-being of the kids and the community, there is no wrong in those types of decisions. So thank you for doing that, and I'm sure there's going to be some tough decisions to follow coming down the pike. I also came here to, like I did last week during the fiscal meeting, to give my support to you, the school committee, since you've just received the superintendent's budget. I do look forward to see what you do with it, and I look forward to see what we do with it when the time comes. And it's not a tough, it's going to be a lot of tough decisions are going to be made, and I just wish you nothing but the luck. I know you'll have the best interests of the town in mind when looking at it, the same as we will. So good luck, and I'm always available too. So I look forward to seeing you at the future meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any other comments from the public? Okay. Next on the agenda is the public hearing. Reading of new policy, the second. It just has to be read into the record. A4, smoke and tobacco-free schools policy, read into the record. Thank you. And then, again, public comments, if anyone has any comments related to this policy. Okay, then moving on to new business. And the first item on the new business is the submission of the fiscal year 2021 superintendent's proposed school budget. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What we do historically is I submit a letter to the chair of the school committee. So I submitted this letter to Mr. DeMonica today, requesting an amount of $71,488,985. And as we have discussed, our biggest concern is the fact that we are projecting a significant budget shortfall that at this point in time is close to $4.8 million. And as we discussed in our meeting last Thursday, we have identified, and not that it won't change, but we have identified some areas that we believe will get us to where we need to be budget-wise, and we're going to have to make some significant cuts. The single biggest concern that I know you have, and certainly we have as educators, is that all of the good work that we've done by all of the people that we've been able to put in place over these last several years, that we may lose some of those people, and I can't imagine that it would not have some impact on our performance in some way. So I would be remiss if I did not say that we're looking at significant cuts, even if we get the maximum amount of money from the town. If we do not get the $1.8 million, which is 4% from the town, then we are looking at even more significant cuts. So as you know, we have discussed that we have some work to do. Our goal is to minimize, for lack of a better term, minimize the damage. And we're going to be having some conversations, as you know, in the scheduled fiscal meetings that we have scheduled over the next couple of weeks. We'll be discussing the cuts that we have recommended, and I'm sure that there'll be some conversation about those decisions that we have made as an administrative team. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next on the agenda is the vote on separation agreement on the agenda is for 4 teachers, but tonight it is just 3 teachers, Teacher A, Teacher B, and Teacher C. Yes, please.
We submitted these agreements for approval. I ask that they be approved. I don't know if you have any questions that I haven't covered.
All with exception D, right?
All of exception D, A, B, and C.
A, B, and C.
Should probably do them separately, because you approved the other ones separately, so.
We can do them all together?
Motion to approve?
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. It passes 5-1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is a discussion and/or vote to approve the employment contract for the district support technician. This was approved up in fiscal and now needs to be approved here.
Correct.
Right? So I need a motion to approve the employment contract for the district support technician.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Waters.
Second.
Second by Mr. Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next item on the agenda, is something, we have to vote. We're voting. Okay. So a vote on the second reading and final approval of the new policy, A4, smoke and tobacco-free schools. Mr. Fiorello.
So as required by law, we are supposed to have a policy on smoke-free schools. So we've created this policy. Unfortunately, I don't have my copy with me, but if anyone has any questions about the policy, I'm sure I can answer them. It's just basic language, really, is laid out under the different templates that other towns have used, and I would make a motion to pass this policy.
A motion by Mr. Fiorello. Second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 6-0. Okay, next up on the agenda are the personnel recommendations. And we have a vote on resignations, one certified staff and one coach.
Yes.
Take them together?
I request do you want me to do them both together and vote on one or individually?
Individually? Individually, please.
I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation or retirement, if applicable, to Levon Davis Shank, world language teacher at Cumberland High School, effective June 30th, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Fiorello. Second by Mrs. Waters and Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Next, I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation of Matthew LaRoche, junior varsity baseball coach at Cumberland High School, effective February 27th, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Waters. Second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Next up is a retirement. I request the advice and consent of the school committee for the retirement of Virginia Vachon, science teacher at North Cumberland Middle School, effective June 30th, 2020, after 30 years of service.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Waters, second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 6-0.
And finally, I have spring coach appointments. The first is the appointment of Robert Reedy for baseball junior varsity. I request the advice and consent for the appointment.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Waters,
Second.
second by Mr. Salvatore. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0.
Next up, I request the advice and consent of the school committee for the appointment of Erin Gendro, lacrosse girls varsity, for the spring season.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mrs. Waters,
Second.
second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 6-0. Thank you.
And that does leave 2 vacancies that remain, lacrosse girls university and boys junior varsity. We'll continue to work on that.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, next on the agenda is school committee comments, if there's any comments from anyone on the school committee. Okay. All right, we are not going into executive session tonight, Mr. Mitchell, are we?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
then I need a motion to adjourn. Mr.
Second.
Fiorello, second by Mrs. Waters and Mr. Collins, all in favor? Aye. Aye, the ayes have it. Opposed? No, ayes have it, 6-0, motion to adjourn. Thank you.